times move fast. What worked before may not always last. Fathers, sons, brothers stand tall. Learning from each other, we rise through it all. Young and old, side by side, bridging the gap with truth and pride. The times may change, but the heart remains. Let's connect, break the chains, bridging generations, voices of men from the past to the future. We rise again, different views, but the bond stays strong. We listen, we learn, we all belong. We're living in a world that's shifting fast. New challenges come, but our strength will last. Wisdom meets vision, we light the way. Standing together, we won't fade away. Young and old, side by side, bridging the gap with truth and pride. The times may change, but the heart remains. Let's connect, break the chains, bridging generations, voices of men from the past to the future. We rise again, different views, but the bond stays strong. We listen, we learn, we all belong. We're living in a world that's shifting fast. New challenges come, but our strength will last. Wisdom meets vision, we light the way. Standing together, we won't fade away. And young and old, a brand new stage. We must rise to meet the age. With open minds and hearts that lead. Together we grow, together we succeed. Bridging generations, voices of men in a changing world. In a changing world.
All right, greetings, friends of the A-Collision with Purpose movement. Welcome to Bridging Generations, Voices of Men in a Changing World. I am Dr. Laxley Stephenson. This groundbreaking podcast delves into the multifaceted experiences of men across different generations. In an era where societal norms and expectations rapidly evolve, this show offers young and older men, and tonight, women, a unique platform to voice their challenges, triumphs, and perspectives.
Yes, and each episode aims to foster understanding and bridge the gap between generations, exploring themes ranging from masculinity and mental health to career dynamics and personal relationships. By bringing together voices from varied age groups, the show sheds light on the commonalities and differences in the male experience and female experience, encouraging open dialogue and mutual learning. I am Dr. Garfield McCook, one of your hosts.
So whether it's a teenager grappling with the pressures of social media or a senior reflecting on the changing definitions of manhood, Bridging Generations is committed to uncovering the real stories of men navigating the complexities of a changing world. I am Dr. Juan Marcel, another one of your co-hosts for this wonderful show. And tonight, Doc, I turn it back over to you. What is going on?
Man, the question is, what is not going on? It is all happening. You know, I tell you, let's talk about what happened this weekend. We had a big day. Saturday was a big day. You know, another movement, we call it GIFs, Legacy in Motion. Let's turn it to Dr. McCook and walk us through what happened, Dr. McCook.
Yes, well, to all watching, if you didn't see it, you can go and check the replay out. The GIFs announced the semifinalists on Saturday at the APAC Media Group in Snellville, Georgia. And, the opening remarks were so powerful that, we have people asking who was that person who did the opening remarks. And we had none other than Dr. Laxley Stephenson, who opened the floor and sort of laid out who GIFs is and who we're going to be, and sort of laid the roadmap for us going through our finals on July 26th. So it was a very interesting afternoon. We actually selected the semifinalists for the competition. And between yesterday and the 30th of June, we'll have fans from around the world who are going to tune into jiifsc.com to cast their vote for that song that they want to help propel to the top 7, which is going to be announced on July 1st. So we had a great afternoon. We had a small gathering for the kickoff, or to announce, and we had fun. We listened to all songs that were played, and the vibes was good in the room. You had everybody rocking to the songs. These are songs, festival theme or songs, and we had Dr. Donna there rocking also. I saw her rocking on her chair and enjoying every moment that we had. So it was a good start to our 5th staging for the Jamaica International Independence Foreign Song Competition. Tickets are available at jiifsc.com also, and through the end of June, we're going to be discounting tickets. So instead of paying $50, it's going to be $40 through the end of June. So go on, check it out. Our 5th year, the number 5 in any organization is significant, because it shows that there's some strength there. There's a goal there. There's a movement, as Dr. Lax mentioned last Saturday. So we had a good time. I had as my co-host or the person helping me to announce the winners, Andrea came up to the stage and helped me announce the winner. So it was a good partnership. It was a good time there, and we all had fun. And we welcome you from around the world to just follow us. Follow the Jamaica International Independence Foreign Song Competition, jiifsc.com.
And let me pop this thing on the screen so you can talk to us about this, all right?
Sorry. Yeah, so here we go. That's the flyer you're seeing there for GIFs. A first prize of $8,000, second prize $4,000, and third prize of $3,000. So GIFs, as we said, it was started to create that platform for the Jamaican artists in the diaspora who were so hungry for years to have a platform so they can perform. It allows them to do their normal daily living by just submitting their songs, live their life, go ahead and work for their families. And then come July 1st, when we announce the top 7, then those will go on to the finals on July 26th. The finals will be judged by 5 seasoned judges in the music industry. And we wanted to make sure we have quality. It's got to be quality judges who know exactly what music is and what we're looking for. Our criteria for the competition is vocal quality, originality, production quality, and the songs have to have some relevance or all relevance to the Jamaican culture. So that's what we look forward to. And this is our 5th year. We have had over 50 or 60 artists who have gotten that platform and made use of it over these years. We had 4 great winners. And this year we're looking forward again to a good panel of artists that are going to come on stage and show us what they have. And we invite you all to join us here on July 26th again at 6 p.m. at Shiloh High School in Snellville, Georgia. Looking forward to seeing you.
Yes, and we're talking about Jamaica loving you from afar. And that's what it's all about. We're loving you from afar. All right, Dr. Juan, what's happening with you? Before we get to the main thing for the night, what's going on with you?
What is going on? I'm overjoyed. My baby girl just completed elementary school. So I'm just, just all smiles and happy because now we're headed to middle school, moving on up. She's matriculating so well. So I'm excited about that. So that's pretty much what my mind is as of right now. So just proud dad, I guess.
And what a good thing to be. For a moment there, I thought you was going to sing that song, that classic song, We're Moving On Up. Dr. McCook, you want to finish it to the what? To the hills? Finally got a piece of what?
Right?
I thought you was going to drop that on us, Dr. Juan. But I'm not, he can't enter, can he, Dr. McCook?
Oh, yeah. Remember, he has some Jamaican blood in him. I know he did his research. Was that the 1, 2, 3 or 2, 3, 1, whatever it is? Me.
So he can enter. There's some room in there for him. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, gentlemen, we have a big show tonight. Tonight, we're going to redefine gender and strength, healing, vulnerability, and the power of showing up. And this is a conversation that really needs to happen. But we have two special guests that we're going to bring onto the panel tonight, and we're going to talk through this. All right? But before we do that, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back with that, all right? And when we come back, we'll introduce both of our guests.
I'm a boy kid, I'm a boy kid. I'm a boy kid, I'm a boy kid. I wake up in the morning and I praise the Lord. I thank Him for His protection and I walk in His steps, declaring that today's provision is set up for me. I love God and I love my friends. I'm a boy kid. I'm a boy kid. I'm a boy kid. I put on my armor and I read His word, blessing come out of my mouth. Cause I know to whom I belong, I am bold for Christ. Holy Spirit dwelling within me, carrying His presence wherever He sends me. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid. Loving others as He told me to pray for healing, miracles to see, knowing my identity in Christ, He is in me. I am a bold kid, He loves me, standing firm on His word, proclaiming everything I heard, not afraid because He is with me. Be bold. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid. Put on my armor and I read His word, blessing come out of my mouth. Because I know to whom I belong, I am bold for Christ. Holy Spirit dwelling within me, carrying His presence wherever He sends me. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid.
Right, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to Bridging Generations, Voices of Men in a Changing World. And tonight, we're going to be redefining gender and strength, healing vulnerability, and the power of showing up. So we have two special guests coming on tonight. Dr. McCook, can you bring on our first guest? And then we'll ask Dr. Juan to do the same.
Yes, and before I bring the first guest on, the show is normally about gentlemen, but we had to have the power of women with us tonight because I look at them as a stabilizer bars in our lives. So without further ado, let me welcome to the show the illustrious Dr. Donna Thompson, Vice President of Global Humanity Network. Welcome, Dr. Donna.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. We had to have you grace us tonight. You're normally behind the scenes, and this is just so appropriate to have you. We needed the company tonight of good folks with good thinking.
So Dr. McCook, in the future, say none other.
None other.
None other. All right. So Dr. Donna, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with
So good to have you.
my gentlemen.
Let's bring on our none other doctor. Juan, please.
Yes, I mean, this conversation wouldn't be what it needs to be without this great, I call it a beacon of wisdom, a bit of wisdom right down in our ears. So we couldn't do it without this distinguished guest, Dr. Cecelia Lynch. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the stage.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here to share in this conversation about men and being able to give a female perspective on our topic tonight. So I'm really, really looking forward to having this conversation.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Before we jump in, let's welcome folks who are watching us. We have Elizabeth from Kenya, Chrisone from Jamaica, and I can't tell the other names, but if you're watching, we appreciate you joining us tonight. This is going to be an interactive conversation. We want you to participate. I'll be posting the questions in the chat, in the comments, and we're looking forward to your joining the conversation and adding value, right? Because without you, we do this for you, right? Not just for us, for all of us. And you're a key part of this. So tonight, as I said earlier, it's a big night. We're coming together not just as men and women, but as humans, navigating pressure, pain, expectations, and purpose. This panel tonight isn't about pointing fingers. It is about pulling back layers. It's about asking hard questions and creating room for honest answers. Somewhere along our journey, all of us, we were taught that strength means silence, that vulnerability is weakness, and that healing is something we do alone, if at all. We're here tonight to redefine gender expectations. We're here to reclaim the power of vulnerability. And we're here to recognize that showing up fully, fearfully, faithfully is one of the most radical things that we can do. So I want you to lean in, let your guard down, and understand that this space is not just for dialogue, but it's for healing. Let me begin with the first question that we're going to have tonight. And I want to post it in the chat. It is, what does true strength look like when we strip away the gender stereotypes? And we'll start with you, Dr. Juan.
Oh, okay. Okay. What does true strength look like when we strip away the gender stereotypes? I would say, I feel like I believe it's more in being able to endure and withstand when facing challenges. Whatever the challenges are, just finding that wherewithal, that stick-to-itness, when just up against things that would normally take someone out, and you find the power, the inward power to just withstand it, to push through, to persevere. I would find it that way.
Dr. Cecelia?
I would agree with what Juan said, but I would also add having the ability to not only, as Juan said, persist and get through it, but also look for the opportunity to overcome the obstacles that are in your way or come up with a solution to a problem. To me, that's what I think of a person who I think is a strong person, having those two components. Just as Juan said, being able to be persistent, as well as being able to navigate through the different challenges that one have and find a way out and find a solution to a problem.
Dr. McCook, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, when you think about stereotypes, I kind of think if we all close our eyes and give the task to someone, not knowing what gender that person is, and just seeing results, and then you can basically play a game. You give the task, you're blindfolded, you look at the results, and then you judge the results based on what the criteria was. So that way you don't have someone knowing that, okay, it's a male or a female that did it. Because we have a tendency in life to say, okay, women can't do that, but men can. So certain stereotypes, once we get rid of them by just blindfolding ourselves and just looking at the result and what was the criteria was set, then I think we can get over a lot of these stereotypical things that we have.
Mhm. Dr. Donna, you're normally first. At this time, you get to hear everything, then jump in. What are your thoughts?
I think it's for both genders to really be vulnerable in whatever situation that they're in, and acting according to whatever it is that they're being faced with is where you'll find your strength, is just really being vulnerable to whatever comes up, regardless of your gender and how you deal with it. I think your strength comes out that way.
And I'm also thinking that you need to be authentic, right?
Mhm.
To be yourself, who you are, no matter what, even when it's not making sense and it's misunderstood, or some may perceive it to be weakness, and
Right.
choosing integrity over image, over this whole projection as well, right? So no, I want to say, for a man, true strength. This is tough, but it may mean saying, I need help.
Right.
Absolutely.
I need help, right? Not easy to do, right? You see how difficult it was for me just to bring that out? It could mean just that. You need help. Now, from a woman's perspective, can we just go into, just like I just said, for a male, can we be a little bit more specific in terms of Donna, Dr. Cecelia, for a woman?
Donna, you want to be first? For me, for a woman, strength for a woman is pretty much the same, I think, for a man. We're all human beings at the end of the day. I think a lot of times strength is culturally and societally based, as it relates to perception of strength. So I think it's the same for women and men. And part of it is exactly as Dr. Laxley said, being able to ask for help. That is part of strength. And as Donna said, being vulnerable, being able to show your true self, show your weaknesses at times, that is also part of strength. And then my factor, the factor that people really might look at, is having that stoicism, wherein you are navigating the challenges that are coming your way without being really emotionally attached to the results, right? So strength definitely comes in a lot of different ways, but I think it applies to men and women. The same things apply to men and women.
Strength is strength. It's just, how we as men, how we have been,
Are cultured.
cultured. Exactly. So for a woman, it's probably what they always endure. They just be more authentic and can afford to be more authentic, right? They can live in a real space, where men just hiding behind something.
Right. Because early you guys were told not to cry, right? So from your little boys, you're told you're not supposed to be crying. You're acting like a girl if you do.
In the public space.
Yeah.
All right. So Elizabeth said, it is the strength to feel, to speak your truth, to be soft when the world tells you to be hard, or to stand tall when everything in you feels broken.
Amen.
She said, for me, as I navigate life with cancer, strength has looked like letting people in, saying, I am not okay today. Choosing hope again and again, even when it is hard. That has nothing to do with being male or female. There you go, Dr. Cecelia. And it is about being human, and that kind of strength, quite honest, messy, is very powerful. And I guess we can agree, or pretty much agree to that. And I will say this. When we strip away the performance of gender, we find strength rooted in honesty, humility, and hope.
Mhm.
All right. So Awesome stuff there. Again, if you're watching us, we ask that you join the conversation. And the question is, are we honoring the quiet strength of resilience and emotional honesty, or only celebrating dominance and control? Are we honoring the quiet strength of resilience? Let me post it. And who wants to go first on that one? We'll stay with Dr. Juan.
I'm sitting here thinking through that, especially just through personal experiences. And I think even as often as we hear, especially now through social platforms, as much as we talk about mental health and resilience and pushing through and all these things, I think from my personal experience, it's still a challenge to, even with the gender expectations. I feel like it's still a challenge to accept seeing a man, in a sense, weakened by something. And I say this from personal experience, having to share with loved ones or close ones of all genders. When you're raised to push through and to be strong and be responsible, and you find yourselves in seasons or times in life where you just don't feel like you have enough to even go on, and you start to lean. And I've watched it make others uncomfortable, especially when you tend to be the one who has all the answers, or you're the strong one, And I think I've learned that a lot of times we say you're strong because I feel like that's the best we can do sometimes. Because if we go further than that, we get into emotions and feelings, we get uncomfortable. We don't know what to say. So no, you're strong. You're going to get through it, and it's so cliche. But then when that person stands and wants more, it's like, that's all I got. You're strong. You're going to figure it out. I just don't want to be the one to have to hold you up or see you break down and through that. And so I think as much as we talk about resilience, I feel like there's still a celebration of dominance and control, like this expectation. Rise up, dominate, take control. You're going to get it. You're going to figure it out. You're going to make it, And sometimes you don't feel like you are. And so I think that pushes people to make the decision to suffer in silence.
That's serious stuff. Suffer in silence. Dr. Donna?
Yeah, I totally agree with Dr. Juan on what he's saying, but I also see a flip side in today's society where we're finding the female where they're taking on more I don't necessarily want to say like masculine characteristics, but we do find that our female in society these days, they are having to take on more of those traits. And then we're tending to lose some of that femininity about ourselves. So it's like you're having a flip of what is happening. And then when those women tend to now say, you know what, this is too much, or they're getting back into their feminine space, then they're being seen and portrayed as being weak, right? So it's almost like our society is putting so much on the gender where we're flipping roles. So it's like everyone is supposed to be acting in this dominant and controlling space, and there's really no level of sensitivity and just an emotional balance between the genders. So that's just my take on it. Yeah, it's
But we're more than one thing, right? We can be different things.
We can.
We're not fixed. So
right.
You can have this side of you and then this side of it, depending on the situation, right?
Right.
And you're not restricted or confined to any one role or one approach. And Dr. McCook, your thoughts on?
Let me go back to when Dr. Cecelia mentioned about emotion and emotionality. I remember studying to be a broker. And we were guinea pigs because they were switching from a multiple choice format to you either know it or you don't know it. So you would have a question, maybe 10 questions. And if you get the first 3 right, that's 2 points each, that's 6. But if you start getting anything wrong, it's going to subtract. And I remember taking that exam, and for some reason it was I think it was just two males in that room that day. And I was under so much pressure because I had gone ahead and I'd bought a real estate office. So I had to become a broker. And there were these ladies in there who seemed so calm. And I remember taking the exam and walking up to the window, and the lady said, "You passed." And I remember that one teardrop coming from my eyes. And I'm saying, I had to show the emotion. And they were wondering, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" But I was being true to myself and to them that I have emotions also. I wasn't going to be that macho guy in there who I pass and I'm going on. You know, it was a traumatic experience because I was working things backwards. So I have expressed emotions in public. I mean, I don't have a macho thing. It's if a lady can do the job better than I do, and if they can, I've supervised women, and I tap them on the shoulder. You know, one of the things I've done as a manager over women and men, I always have a first conversation and say, "Hey guys, here's the deal. We're here to do a job, and the tendency is if something is going wrong, I have to come over and I have to be nice to you and say, excuse me, can you do this?" Why would the guy, I can shout. So I set the table, I set the groundwork. I said, "Look, I respect you, you respect me. At times I have to come. If I sound a little loud or so, it's not a disrespect. So let's just get that out of the way. Because something is happening and I have to come and say, look, move to your right." It's no disrespect. So don't look at it as a male chauvinist or anything. So that's something I've established, you know, when I'm working with females, that look, we're all on the same level. We have emotions. You express yours, I express mine, but just respect me and I respect you. And I think with that, we get along. And that has worked for me.
Dr. Cecelia, you want to add anything before we move on?
Again, I think this conversation is truly based on our societal norms, because Gary's talking about how he operates at work, and I've seen where we have females who operate like that. And it doesn't matter how much they premise it and say, "I'm just trying to get you guys to go, no disrespect." She's called the B word. It's she's doing the same thing. And yes, she premises it like it's just, but it's just the society that we live in. It puts certain stereotypes on the genders. Women, we're not supposed to be loud, or we're not supposed to be bossy, and we have to watch how we speak. We always have that, and it is coming way back from Bible days, because the Bible pretty much tells women in a lot of places in the Bible, from what I've heard. I haven't read the whole thing. I don't know if there's any places in there where it says differently, but it always says that the women need to, like, for example, if you're married, the woman is expected to lean on their husband for guidance, right? The woman should allow the man to take charge. And so that would be in a domestic relationship. And then when you go into the workforce, for years, it has been men who are the bosses, right? So as Donna is saying, we're just now coming into this space where we are becoming bosses, or we're taking over the domestic roles, wherein, some husbands are staying at home and the wives are going out to work. So the roles are shifting, and as the roles shift, then the expectations of the women shift. And so we're here navigating this new leadership role in many of our relationships, whether it be at home or work or in the community. And we're here just navigating it. And so it's, unfortunately, the dominance thing works for the men. It still works for the men. As Laxley was saying, are we are we being dominant, or are we truly just being soft and subtle? The dominance works for the men. The women have not, it has not caught up. That dominance in terms of external expressions, that's still there. Now, women, when we know how to do this, and we're learning how to be dominant without being loud, but it's a balancing act for us still. We're working on it. We're getting there, because we're coming a long way, because we're really in new roles. We're really in new roles as it pertains to being dominant in society, in work, at home. So we're navigating it, and we're walking a tightrope right now, just to make sure that we balance our dominance with our vulnerability. Just having that balance right now.
Exactly. So even now, with the shift that you're talking about, if most people, they see a woman stepping out in that new role, and and people look at it, we're acting surprised, right? Because we don't expect that. That's not the expectation, even though there's a shift and so forth. Let us acknowledge Perlina Drummond. She says, sometimes the woman have to take on a masculine role after the death of her husband. You just have to take on his role, plus your role. How about that? And Sitawa said, I've learned that the loudest voices aren't always the strongest. At times, strength is found in silence, enduring pain quietly, to choose to live one more day, admitting fear without shame. Actually, that kind of strength isn't loud or seen, but it's real. And thank you, Carissa, for joining us. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate you. Here's a thought. I'm going to post a statement in here. We can all talk about that. It says, men are often told to man up, while women are expected to hold it together. And the toll that takes. Let's talk about that one. Is that an accurate statement?
Oh, I believe it. I've witnessed it. I was raised by a group of women who can see too many tears. What they took on so much. And it was. And to be honest with you, real quick, I struggled. Here's a candid and transparent moment. I struggled for years in romantic relationships with my significant other when she cried, because I didn't know how to manage that. I didn't see that growing up, because the women that raised me held it together, so they had that mentality, so you're raising men or just children, period, and they don't see that vulnerable side. They don't know how to even handle vulnerability, let alone show it, but then even handle it when there are others around them that need, just, I would say TLC, in those moments. I didn't know how to do it. I honestly, we talking about strength and weakness. That's how I felt. I was like, oh, you're being weak. Like, what do you mean you can't? You figure it out. Because that's the women I saw, but I didn't see behind the scenes. And so I had to, it wasn't until I was, my outlook was challenged that I actually changed it. But before that, I didn't even realize that that's how I saw women based on my environment. So I agree that I think this statement is true.
And let's hear from Donna. And the next question is going to reinforce what you're saying, Juan. But let's hear from Donna on that, just a comment on that statement.
I mean, I totally agree with Juan. A lot of times, I don't know. As mothers that have sons, we have a lot of times we're not aware of our responsibility, really and truly, that we're raising men. And if we don't show love and compassion to our boys when they become grown men, just like what Juan is saying, they're dysfunctional in relationships. So as mothers, if we're looking at our boys and we're telling them, oh, if you fall, get up, man up, but hey, I fell in and I got a bruise, it hurt, like I'm bleeding, it hurt, if we don't allow them to if we don't allow them to speak their emotions from their children, then just like what Juan is saying, when they get older and something happens to their girlfriend, their wife, or they're in a relationship, they're looking at them sideways like, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying? Why you feel this way? Why, get over it. So as far as parents raising our children, we have to be mindful of the things that we're doing, because we have a great responsibility in the product, the end result of how they're going to function in society and in their marriages and relationships.
You know, Dr. Donna, I'm laughing because I'm thinking about my grandchildren. Of course, I have a grandson and a granddaughter. And if something happened and he would hit the deck, I said, boy, get up. But if my granddaughter hit, I'm running over there with a big hug.
You see what I'm saying?
Exactly what you're talking about.
Now, what's the difference? But it's like, pain is pain. They both felt pain.
Thompson, boy, get up. Man up, right? So it's an accurate statement, right?
Yeah.
And Lisa said it's about structure and accountability. And then let's move on to the next one. I'm going to ask Dr. Cecelia to comment on this. How have gender expectations silence your voice or pressure you to perform? Expectations, right? Societal norms and those type of things.
Well, me personally, that's like a personal question. How has it silenced me?
Yeah, you
It
personally.
hasn't really silenced me, but I'll be honest, it has toned me down. I'm loud. I'm very loud. I'm normally very loud. I'm normally very loud. I'm normally very to the point, not really like as I get older, I'm a little bit more aware of this, but I'm normally the loud you can hear. I'm still loud, but I'm normally very loud, and I'm normally direct. And I'll normally just say it as I see it. I don't really, my brain doesn't spend the time to clean it up. I'm working on cleaning it up a little bit more now that I'm saying that I before I say things to people. But I think it's not just the societal thing. Although we most of us here are, except for Juan, we're Jamaicans. We're born Jamaicans. And then coming to America was a different culture, a different experience. My loudness and directness is a little bit more accepted in Jamaica than it is in America. So again, we're talking about how culture and society can impact or influence our how we go about and how we carry ourselves. Because my toning down has been in direct relationship to responses that I have gotten in the American culture that I have to check myself, like, oh, Cecelia, no, you can't. You got to. So yes, society and culture does influence, for me personally, how I comport myself when I'm trying to lead a team, or I'm trying to work with my patients and my families, and showing strength. Luckily, I'm married to a Jamaican guy, so he kind of get that part of me. Like that hasn't really been an issue. But even being strong and in a relationship, the culture does definitely impact, for me personally, how I go about showing up, how I go about showing up. I do have to tone it down. I'm working on it. Not quite there yet, but I'm working on it.
So your behavior is framed depending on where you are. If you're in Jamaica, it's a different. You're more likely to function one way, and if you're here in America, you tend to pull back a little bit because of where you are.
Right, and not just the societal culture too, but also the different environments, right? Because depending on the environment that I'm in, whether it be where I'm around a group of people who I'm very familiar with, or a group of people who it's supposed to be in a professional role or teaching role with, as opposed to, you know, being in the office. Like everything changes. Like there's always something impacting. There's always something impacting for me. But at the end of the day, though, I still remain my core of who I am as a person, but my delivery is what I tone. That's all I'm toning. I'm not going to change. My core doesn't change. My core beliefs, values, who I am as a person doesn't change. But my tone, my mannerisms, those kinds of things will change depending on the environment that I'm in.
Right. And let's revisit the question, right? Because the question, how have your gender expectations, right? What societal norms, how they believe you should be, stereotypes, whatever, silence your voice or pressure you to perform.
Right.
All right.
So my point is, mine isn't silenced, right, but it's dimmed a little bit.
Okay, tone it down a little bit.
Tone it down a little bit.
Dr. Juan, are you silenced or are you amplified?
I would say, I want to say out of the choices, I would say amplified. And what I mean by that, you know, just listening to Dr. Cecelia and just this conversation, I do realize that culture and environment are key factors. I think I want to say also age and experience. I find myself very often leading groups of women just because I'm in education. But it varies because I've heard from different ages, and the younger population often expects you to just lead, tell us what to do, you know, and then, well, no, backwards. So the older often says, we just need you to lead us, just tell us what to do. Younger, oftentimes it's like, you didn't even ask us our opinion or for our input, you know. So I think it really depends on, number one, you know, understanding your audience or who you're working with, because it does vary based on age and experience and like you said, culture and just how people were raised. Because I've had to learn how to read the room and then ask for input before just jumping in and just say, hey, this is what it is, let's go. Because a lot of times they sit there like, yeah, don't even know my name and ask me how my day was going. Like it's a lot of, you know, you just really got to know who you're talking to. So I think those are just understanding the factors in the audience matters.
All right. Before we go to Donna, we have some comments here. Lisa said that we have to be mindful of culture and the way we communicate with others. Use the appropriate language. Using the appropriate language is so vital. And Elizabeth said, as a woman, I am expected to hold everything together, smiling even through the pain, be an emotional guide to others, even when I am the one sinking. That's deep stuff. And when I got very sick, pressure became heavier. I felt like I had to be and look very strong to show up very positive, even when I was breaking inside. It really took time and grace to realize that I didn't have to perform. I could just be. And in being real, I reclaimed myself. All right. Perlina said, much travel will teach a Jamaican woman to tone it down. Check out Dubai. And Cecelia, check out Dubai. Dubai is an interesting place. Talking about gender, right? And so forth. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, and that culture and those cultures goes to women. That's how, you know, those cultural. That's, as I said before, all this is so culturally based.
Absolutely. Let's hear this one. Cecelia jumped in here. She said, we are in a societal shift where women have to extend their role because of economical factors and femininity. Women have found themselves in powerful roles which men should provide support to these women and not try to silence their voices. Are men still working to silence women's voices? Are men doing that? Not on this platform. None of these men are doing that.
Oh, no.
Not these men,
Okay.
but they're men. It's still going. It still goes on. It's hard. It's very hard to eradicate things that are part of the fabric of our society. You know, so will it ever be totally eradicated? Maybe not. Whenever something is in our DNA, it takes a lot of evolution for it to be out. So it's still happening, Laxley. Our society is well, I don't know how old our society is, but it's not old enough for it to be totally eradicated.
It was just the other day, right?
It's,
Women have a lot to offer and should be given a place in society. However, women should not use their power to disrespect men, because men indeed are the head of the house. We're going into a whole different place now, right? I know that there are various views, but there are many things that men can do with that. And I'm not seeing anything else. She cut off there. I know she didn't finish her thoughts, so I want to hear the rest.
let Dr. Gary tell you something that men can do that women can't. Like,
let me bring on our other co-host, because he needs to get into this conversation. Let me bring on Augusta.
No, but with the eagerness that you were saying this and looking at the topic, I don't know if I want any parts of this.
looks like he's setting you up,
I have
Augusta.
I learned from my first marriage, you know, hey man, whatever Miss Donna and Miss Cecelia say, I'm gonna go with that.
This conversation tonight is we're redefining gender and strength. We're talking about healing, vulnerability, and the power of showing up. So this is a conversation we need to have, right? Mm-hmm. We can't hide behind it anymore, and that's why we're having it. And some of the comments is testimony why we need to have this conversation. We need to have it in our circle. You know, as I'm thinking before we go to Donna, I don't know that I've ever had a male who was my mentor. It was always a woman who mentored me. Mm. Always. When I talk about serious mentoring. So, well, I don't know what it's suggesting, what it's implying, or what it means, but that's been my story. And I believe it has served me well. And I also know, and I'm going to put this out there, that most of the partners that I have in business, the ones who really push me, are women. Mm-hmm. It's been my story. Mm-hmm. I have two of them here on this platform. No, seriously, you know, and we're doing amazing work together. So, Augusta, your thoughts?
From a standpoint of what specifically, mentorship or strength?
How have gender expectations silence your voice or pressure you to perform?
I will always say, and I can only give recent. Since this is vulnerability, you know, from a standpoint of gender and how has it affected performance, I could say recently, for those who know, we're actually now 2 months removed from my mother passing away, and I could say there's society-wise, we have a lot of conversations on normalizing certain conversations and certain things, but I could say even with the passing of my mother, I could see the difference in the handling of my sister versus myself with all of the relatives, specifically the women in my family, because I think oftentimes I'm not a huge fan of people saying they're strong. I've never been that way. My mother's one of the strongest people who I knew, and never once out of her mouth did she ever say she was strong. I've always, and I could say this confidently, the people who speak in spaces and they say, I'm a strong person, normally those are the people who you really have to check on because they tend to be the weakest. In handling from my mother's passing, I noticed very quickly, like, I've never been I'm a strong person, I'm this. I just figure things out and do it. But I always realized that there is a silent expectation that you have and that society has for men in certain spaces, whether that is for grief, whether that is for getting things done. And I think and I've learned now, as somebody who grew up around West Africans, Caribbeans, East Indians, Mexicans, El Salvadorians, regardless of the conversations that people like to have, where we say, we really want to normalize this, like, we still are pushing that battle. Because I saw the reflection of the women in my family as I sat there and openly wept in a moment of vulnerability that I should be allowed to have. And I watched the lack of, not empathy, but kind of the shock of, oh my goodness. And there is a stark difference. And I think we still fight that today because we can have conversations, but it's still up to that individual person of when you see your son, when you see your nephew, when you see your uncle, or even for a lot of times, specifically with young girls, their fathers, are you, and like I would ask the women this, because we talk about safe spaces, and I had this conversation on a panel at work. You know, I have a very amazing, supportive woman in my life. And I say that not because she's supportive just to say it, but I say it because she's supportive in a way that I think a lot of people don't realize. Do I have the space and ability to be honest and vulnerable and hurt with you and not fear any backlash? So I think like once and specifically, again, I say throughout the diaspora, because I've grown up around a lot of people, and I know ain't a whole lot of softness going on in the West Indies or the Caribbean or West Africa. There's not a lot of space for vulnerability. I know as somebody who is the grandchild of sharecroppers out of the South, people who are one generation removed from slavery in America, like I know not a lot of tears are allowed. So I would say, and I would challenge the women, and I would ask you, even the women in these comments, we want open love and conversation and redefine the gender. Are you a safe space for the men in your life? If no, you need to stop the conversation and reevaluate what you do.
So that's a great question, Augusta, because my question for the two ladies here is, if your man is not out there leading, how do you view them?
Well, I like both. I like when my man takes charge, and I also like when he breaks down and just be vulnerable and let it out. And funny enough, those are two times, either one was the time when I feel more connected, like during those two moments. So I like both. I actually like both. I like a guy who's vulnerable, and this is said, you don't have to be, nobody can be in charge all the time, and that's not normal. That is not normal. If you're going to be a functional person, there are moments wherein you have to be vulnerable. You have to let it out for your mental health. You will go crazy if you don't have those moments. Those moments are actually those vulnerable moments, expressing them with people who you love and people who you know you can confide in. And sometimes you can be vulnerable just by yourself. Go into a closet and cry if you don't want, to be judged or whatever. But you must, all men who are listening, you must take those moments. The same thing that we women do, we cry. I know for me, when I'm just under stress, there's nothing even bad happening. I'm just under stress and I'll cry. There are times where I'm happy and I just cry. Crying is my thing. I'm a crier. I cry for everything. But what the crying does, it releases a lot of any stress and anxiety. Crying is actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And the notion that society has that men mustn't cry or they shouldn't show their emotions, it's something wherein luckily I see the culture shifting. I see the culture shifting in a way that's telling men, hey, it's okay to cry. As a matter of fact, make up something and cry about it. It helps to release stress. So go ahead and cry. Make crying normal.
Right. So it's all about the release. Dr. Donna, before we go to you, and it's the same question. Carissa said we're stirring up a lot of things here, and we need to stir it up, right? And Hilda Hibbert, thanks for joining us. She says some of our men may practice trying to silence women based on societal norms. Women most are no longer silenced because they're open to equal opportunities and positions such that their calm dispositions are no longer pushed back. We can speak for ourselves, though we still expect our men to take the lead sometimes, and that's what we're talking about now. So, Dr. Donna, your take.
Okay, now you're going to have to repeat that whole question because we just spoke about a whole bunch of stuff.
We're talking about How are you if your man is not leading?
Oh, okay, got you. There was a question before that, so I don't know.
That is the question.
You know, and I think just like what Dr. Cecelia said, I think it really, I'm fine with it, because I think depending on the situation, the circumstance, the scenario, it may require for the man to lead, and it may require for the woman to lead, depending on the circumstance that you're in, because we're different. At the end of the day, we think different, we process things differently, right? So you could end up having a situation where it could be a volatile situation. Do you want your man to jump in and get shot down or something, or as a woman, do you want to come in and try to calm the situation so that you can resolve something for safety reasons or whatever, right? So I think it really depends on the circumstance that you're in. And once again, it goes with being open and authentic and having that good relationship with your partner, where you kind of already establish, certain things, and each other.
All right, thanks for that. Again, you're watching Bridging Generations, Voices of Men in a Changing World. And again, we're redefining gender and strength, healing, vulnerability, and the power of showing up. And tonight we're showing up. All right, so we have another question. And what role does vulnerability play in leadership, love, and legacy? And we're going to go to Dr. McCook.
Well, tough one, but I'll try. Vulnerability. Let me say, my outlook on relationship with male-female is a lot of people talk about even marriage, that marriage is 50-50. I've never believed that marriage is 50-50. Marriage is 100-100. You give your 100%, I give my 100%, and we make it happen. I can talk from my experience. A lot of men I know would never have their wives shopping for them. Guess what? It's easier for me when my wife goes and shop for me, because I don't like shopping, right? It's nothing about being macho. I mean, some things she may not be able to buy for me, but hey, I sit back and relax because that's her strength. So we give 100-100. I travel a lot, we travel a lot, and what I do most times is just pack my bag. I'm traveling in September, and somebody's asking me where I'm going. I said, I know I'm going to X place, but don't ask me any more details, because if she plans something, I know it's something that I'm going to like. So that macho thing about who is leading and everything, it doesn't come in place. And as a result of that, there are no arguments. We just coexist. Earlier, Dr. Cecelia was talking about the culture. Yeah, I believe culture has a lot to do with how we operate. I in terms of being subdued, I remember coming from Jamaica, and in Jamaica we are taught to when an adult is speaking to you must be respectful and look down. I came to New York and I'm looking down, and the people say, "Look at me! Hold up your head and look at me!" Right? So when I'm thinking now that I'm being polite, it's not looked at being polite. It may be looked at being weak. So I had to straighten up and shift and start holding my chin high to survive in a country which I'm not accustomed to. So those were learning experiences that I had to go through. I had male counterparts who would try to silence me because I'm a foreigner. And I remember one guy telling me once, a supervisor, he said to me, McCook, if somebody's talking to you on the phone, they won't know if you are black or white. And I said, wait, what's that? Because I speak English, right? I am from Jamaica, but I speak English. So I was able to survive and not go by I wouldn't say it's societal norm, but it's a societal cultural norm that you come from a country and where we come from, we don't speak English. But we do. So I was not silenced by male counterparts. And when it comes on to women, I try to taper my conversations, the tone. You have to get a pulse of who you're dealing with, the circumstance, and as a result, taper it to that circumstance. There are some women you can have a conversation with, and you can be at a certain level, a certain decibel. But then there are others now you have to lower it. So you just have to just look at your circumstance and respect. If you respect the person you're talking with, whether they're subordinate or superior, then you know how to operate. And there's politics involved in everything. So you have to know, hey, do I say this here or can I say this? And sometimes you say, with due respect, you started off with due respect. So, if you want to say something, which is a kind of little, you're on the borderline, but you started off with due respect. And I think that helps me to be able to have conversations with people. I remember again being in New York, and my boss was trying to talk to me a certain way. And coming to this country, in Jamaica, we don't cuss bad word when we're talking to people, right? And I come to a country where I hear people talking and them cussing bad word. And I remember one time saying to my superior, when you can speak a language that I can understand and I can respond to you in that language, then we can have a conversation. Because he's cussing and using the American F word and everything, and I don't use it. I can't use it back to him. So I kind of brought him down and say, hey, when you can speak in that language that I can understand and I can respond to you accordingly, then we have a conversation. So, I mean, societal norms, yes. Softening myself, I would say being diplomatic. That's all I'm saying. I have been diplomatic and it has worked for me.
My thinking here is telling me that if being authentic allows me to be vulnerable, or being vulnerable mean that I'm living in my true self, who I am, then it will definitely make a difference in terms of love, leadership, and legacy. Because I'm being truly me, and I will not be afraid or guarded to be who I am. So some element of being genuine, of being that person that you can trust and so forth. But how will the person receive it? Then that's now the question, right? So I'm going to pass that to Donna. If I'm seen as too vulnerable, that type of person, how is that received?
I think, for some people it can be received as a form of weakness, right? Mm-hmm. And for others, it can be received as, a form of strength, of being strong. But I think ultimately, as an individual, you have to be okay with your intention, where it's coming from. If it's coming from a sincere heart, then you just have to leave it where it is. And then whomever is going to receive it, however, that's how they're going to receive it. But ultimately, you have to be true to who you are.
So be you and let.
Mm-hmm.
Augusta.
Yes, sir. So, and again, just to make sure the question is, what role does vulnerability play in leadership, legacy, and love? Yeah, I always say this, there's transparency is something that after a while you would find out, you would figure out. Vulnerability is something you would never recognize unless I told you. I think vulnerability is huge, specifically, if for no other portion, the legacy aspect. I think oftentimes we set our kids up for failure because we're not vulnerable enough with them to say, hey, listen, this is where I fell. This is where my shortcomings are. This is where I am not a good mother, father, guardian, etc. And because of that lack of vulnerability, now your kid, your history's doomed to repeat itself. Like they don't see you were this flawed individual in these areas. And because you don't, a lot of parents, I think, don't do it just out of shame. I don't want my kids to know I wasn't good here, or I fell short, or I had these issues. So then, you open the door to your kid to be susceptible to those exact same failures. So I think, specifically from a standpoint of legacy and that being established and making sure that when I'm long gone and stinking in a box and in the dirt, that my kids and their children understand, listen, we were told of this because we didn't want to follow down the same path. So yeah, I believe vulnerability is of the utmost importance, specifically when you're talking about your legacy.
And let's hear what Sitawa had to say. She said, for me, my current situation has stripped away the illusion of control and taught me that vulnerability is not weakness.
Mm-hmm.
She's saying that it is wisdom. It is what allows me to lead with compassion, to love wholly, and to leave behind a story that speaks the truth and not just survival. You know, when you're in a place where you're threatened, right? You find that you become who you really are when you understand that what so many of us take for granted when you're being threatened that you're going to lose it, then that whole sense of this is who I am, when you're faced with challenges, trials, tribulations, the real you sometimes come out in a big time way. And I think that's what she's saying, for we all know her situation, right? What she's dealing with. And so what she's saying there is very powerful. Thanks for joining us, Marcia. We appreciate you. Here's one for you, Dr. Cecelia. How can we create spaces where both men and women feel safe enough to be seen, heard, and held? We'll go with Dr. Cecelia in that one.
I don't know for sure if that's something wherein we need to rely on people to create spaces for us. I think we have to make the space for ourselves, right? So if you're
from that perspective, where you can, you're making it for yourself.
Where we can make it for ourselves. I think in everything, in all our relationships, in the different relationships we have, we create those moments wherein we are vulnerable or we're in charge. And the one thing that I would say about being vulnerable in your relationships, again, it's a balancing act, right? It can't be wherein you, at the drop of a dime, you're falling out, depending on where you are, right? Because if you're a leader at a company, yes, it's okay to be vulnerable, because it helps you with your relationship with your team and your coworkers. But at the same time, you can't go to every meeting and crying out your eyes. So you just have to operate as yourself, but also keep in mind that the environment, as I said earlier in the conversation, the environment that you're in will help you dictate how you present yourself, how you show up in those environments. So it's just being mindful, and that's all we have to do. And we create our own spaces, our own moments, our own time, our own interactions, our own presence, our own personality, our own vulnerability. Make it about yourself. Be intentional and make it about yourself. You're making you. At the end of the day, we can't necessarily control how someone's going to perceive us. But as Donna said, if we're coming from an open heart and we're coming into the space with good intentions, everything will fall into line. So that's all we need to do. To create our space, that's all we need to do. Be intentional about our actions.
Be intentional. Dr. Donna, let's hear from you.
I echo exactly what Dr. Cecelia is saying, is that, every interaction you have with someone is a moment that you can help to build a better relationship and foster trust with that individual. So you don't necessarily have to go out there and, like how we're having this podcast right here. Yes, this is great. But it doesn't limit us, right? Because I know that as, we're out there, we all have interactions with or opposite genders. And those are always opportunities to where you can, let people feel comfortable and feel safe, to where you can have conversations, you can express your emotions, and you can be supported. So you can create your own environments.
Dr. Juan, can you create your own environment?
I believe so. I do believe so. I think it's and I agree with both what Dr. Donna and Dr. Cecelia said. I think the key word in there is intentionality. I don't think they just happen by accident. These spaces aren't created by accident. I think those who are willing to do the work and be intentional can, me or any of us, create this space where others feel safe to be their full selves.
We have a number of people who are not very intentional. Because there's a gap and a lack of what we're talking about there when we're talking about creating spaces where both men and women feel safe enough to be seen, because that certainly is not where we are. We're not there. So while we're hearing this, and that and this panel certainly is not what is happening outside of this panel for the most part. Dr. McCook, your thoughts?
There's a thing called stifling, and what I say stifling is relationships where one party, most likely the female back in the past, is so subdued. They don't have a voice. And based on the evolution, I think back in the 70s or so, when they had, I don't remember what the term was. There was a term back then where women were given what was it? Was it women empowerment or whatever it is? Where they tried to have a level playing field. And women felt better now that they can express themselves. But there was a stifling effect, and it still happens today. It still happens today in most relationships, where you hear, is the man wear the pants? And that I don't think works. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. We both can wear pants. Although let me put this away. I was in a relationship years ago, and let me tell you, whoa, that's personal. What I can say now. Yes, home girl, put on the pants. And I think back then it was just based on economics. Economics.
It's not gender.
Yeah, it was more economics, and you have relationship where once you have to talk about who's earning more and all that stuff, there's a big problem there. So you can be in a situation and you can be a strong man, but if one girl want to put on the pants or try to put on the pants, you have an option. You either leave or you stay. And I'm here, and you can know I left.
So, Dr. McCook, I'm so happy that you brought it out. So, one, what if your woman is just dominating, been so dominant and just managing you, controlling you? Can you deal with that?
No. We're saying two different things. Now, if you're talking about being married or being a woman who makes more money than me and wants to, I have no problem with it. I'm not. When you say, you say control is that's the opposite word.
That's part of what Dr. McCook is talking about when they say put on the pants. That's what he's talking about.
But and this goes back to it, that women, like when we are wearing the pants, is synonymous to controlling. It's not control and wearing the pants. It shouldn't necessarily be the same. And so that falls right into the stereotype that because a woman is wearing the pants, she's controlling, which does not necessarily have to be that way, right? So it's like the man is now the victim because the woman is wearing the pants, but it doesn't, wearing the pants and being controlling is not the same thing. right? Because a woman can be leading in the relationship. Sometimes she's not even sometimes she's not even making more money, but she's probably a better organizer. She has better memory. She can find a shirt that costs $20, which would have cost $200 somewhere. So not because the woman takes the leadership role or a more or stronger role or a more assertive role doesn't mean that she's controlling. So just to put that out there for all my women out there who are wearing the pants.
But Dr. Cecelia,
what he meant by
I'm talking about a deliberate. It's a deliberate thing to say, look, me run things. We're not talking about.
No. I get. But what I'm saying is, I don't want for people to be listening and conflate wearing the pants with controlling, because controlling, I just want to set the distinction. Your situation, Gary, I get your situation. I get your PTSD from the situation.
He survived. He survived. He ran.
I get it, but just to say that there are women out there who they're not controlling. They're just might be, have a dominant streak, but not negatively controlling.
Not negatively. Okay, so Carecia said, yes, stifling is still happening in relationships. Both parties should feel free to express themselves with respect, and that's exactly what Gary did. He ran.
I bought some new sneakers.
And I think really making a conscious effort to really understand each gender and how we think and how we process things, because at the end of the day, we are made up different. We're made up different. Men think one way, they operate one way. Women think one way, operate, and we all think that we're correct in what we're doing. But I think because we're having this platform, right? So we're having real dialogue. But I think that moving forward, like all of us here, really make a conscious effort to really try to understand the next gender, how you think, because men, you're automatic. That's how you're made. You're built a certain way. So you're going to react a certain way. You're going to behave a certain way. Women, we're built a certain way. We're going to react a certain way. We're emotional. We're hormonal. We're this, we're that, or, our hormones is going here, there, left, right. Sometimes we don't even know what's happening with us. And we don't even know how to explain to men, like, why am I crying right now? I don't know. And you're looking at us like we're crazy because our hormones is out of whack. You guys would not understand that. We don't even understand it to even explain it to you.
Donna.
But these are real things.
Yeah.
And so we have to be open-minded and realistic to really have those open conversations so we can help each other to have better relationships, because these are real things that happen to us, both men and women.
Healthy conversations. Healthy conversations.
Yes.
There you go.
Donna, you're hitting hard, and you're telling the truth, and we appreciate that. Let's hear from Augusta, and we're going to go back to Juan, because Juan had a one-word answer, and we want to hear more from him.
That was trying to set me up.
So, I don't want to say me and Juan on the same point, but so are we talking? So let's get a clear definition of control versus, are we talking control leadership? Because control is control. Control is not being able to have the freedom to do stuff. What are we? Can we be more specific with the question? Control, because control is I'm on board with what Miss Donna said. I don't think anyone should control the relationship.
Now the question is your woman leading you? That is the question. Somehow control got in there somehow.
So I think the woman leading me is in certain aspects logically. I think there's going to be certain things she does lead me in. I think I'm the greatest father ever. At the same time, I know I also naturally don't have a nurturing spirit. Like, it's not in me. I still have the mindset of, okay, we need to be a little firm in this. So naturally, when it comes to certain aspects of parenting, hey, you got it. Like, that's it. Certain things where I know, hey, this is not my area. But I think that again goes back to our previous topic, even with vulnerability. Like, I learned from my father, the manliest thing you could do is sit back, shut up, and admit that you don't know. Like it, and a lot of people, and I will specifically, I don't, I know our audience, and I specifically want to say our people, and that is every Jamaican listening, every Antiguan, every Trinidadian, every West African, every brother from Alabama to New York. A lot of us, the mindset is that, and it's like, if you don't know, it's cool to sit back, shut up, regardless of your experience, your level of education. You may not know. I love Ben Carson as an example for everything. Ben Carson is a doctor. Doesn't mean he's smart. Doesn't mean he's smart. There are things that you don't know. And the manliest thing you could do is sit back and go, I really don't know this. Let an expert. So there are areas where I know, listen, this woman knows far more than me. The manliest thing I could do right now is go ahead, baby. You take lead on this because you know. And that equally, she understands this ain't my lane. Let him do it. That's how successful relationships work. Most people, I don't know how many, I know there's at least 2 of us up here who've been divorced. And that being said, like there are certain things that I'm honest and real enough to go, I do not know, but I'm awesome and I'm blessed to have a helpmeet who goes, I think she knows this. I'm gonna let her take the lead. Let me let her lead that. If not, if I'm a man and I'm with somebody who she knows and has the better answer than me, and I'm still choosing to take the lead, I clearly don't want this relationship to work.
There you go.
I have a question for you. Are we talking about the same Ben Carson who was the Secretary of HUD?
That which is that same Ben Carson, which
okay. Let's move to the next.
Learned
he's gifted hands. He has gifted hands.
He's a brain surgeon. I think people.
He's known for that until he became Secretary of HUD.
Which no offense to all of you doctors on the panel, but that is a person who is like, he's a doctor. He's great at brain surgery. Common sense.
No. That was just supposed to be a little joke. All right. So Hilda said, once we know and appreciate self, we as human beings of either gender are capable of adaptability. Think about that, right? We are capable, that. Right? We are capable. We can adjust in order to function, but should not be adjusting because of being vulnerable or being subdued. Don't adjust because of vulnerable or being subdued. Facing reality from the beginning should help either party feel safe in their relationship. And that's touching on what Donna was talking about. You really got to get in touch with what is happening in this, in the real space. All right. So non-judgmental attitude approach, conversations without judgment, encourage open dialogue where individuals feel free to share their thoughts without fear of criticism or dismissal. That's a challenging piece, right? Because we live in a world where slightest thing you say, people are on you, on top of you. So we don't live in a perfect world, right? And we don't live in a world where 1 + 1 always equal 2. People come up with, use numbers and they come up with whatever they want it to mean, right? That's the world we live in. And does that make us a little bit nervous, concerned, scared to open up and say, this is who I am? Thoughts? Because we know the world we're living in and we know what can happen. So are we willing to open up and give off?
Not always.
Show the real me.
People are afraid. You're afraid of judgment. You don't want to be judged.
Yeah.
You don't want to be judged. You don't want to be misunderstood. So a lot of times, no, a lot of people are not going to be very authentic in how they feel and their expressions.
The risk is a bit too high.
And sometimes because the receiving party, sometimes people can cut you down. Yeah, and that may just send you in a different direction, mentally, emotionally, everything. So yeah, sometimes the risk can be very high. It can be too high.
I've known Dr. Cecelia for a long time, and she tends to say what comes to her mind.
You know what? But it takes work, because most people, that's our default. We worry about what the other person is going to think about us. We worry about it's default, but we can work on ourselves to understand that the only thing that really, really, truly matters, and this is especially if it's about somebody who is not somebody who you like, your child or your parent who you love so much and have so much respect for. If we just understand, it's not so much about what those people are going to think about us and what we say, is what we think about ourselves. And as I said before, if we know we're coming from in our hearts and minds, we're coming from a pure, good place, then at the end of the day, don't worry about so much about what another person may receive it as, because we don't have any control over that. And if you spend too much time worrying about what other people think, and they might cut us down, we might get our feelings hurt, or we might end up hurting their feelings. But at the end of the day, if what you were saying was true, and what you were saying was well-meaning and coming from a good place, it's just let it be. Just let it be. Say it and just be yourself. Because chances are, if most times when we're going into situations, we're going in there thinking we're being helpful. Now, that doesn't always be perceived as that from the person, but we're going in there thinking we're being helpful. We're offering great advice. We're being helpful, but it's not always perceived that way. And we just have to know it might not be perceived that way. But don't make us not do what we feel is the right thing to do.
So be you and let it play out.
Yeah, just be you. Be authentic and let it play out.
And Rosemary is saying getting in a defense mode without talking things through is a recipe for failure. Yes, indeed. Mm-hmm. And Lisa said some people hold to many bias towards others of different backgrounds. All truth. Stigma plays a serious role. And so here's the final question for the night. What does it look like to show up with courage, especially when it is uncomfortable? Juan?
I think that's the answers in that question.
Courage.
I think you show up anyway. I think it's in that question, and having to show up and having the courage to show up when it's uncomfortable, to take the discomfort head on and still push through. I think that's the answer to that question. It's in the question. It's showing up. You still show up.
And do you model that behavior on?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. I can confidently say that I do. I'm one of those people that I will, even when there's pain involved or whatever it is, I would rather feel it all and figure out the way to get through it and develop whatever I need to develop and build whatever I need to build to whatever is the strengths, skills, whatever it is. But if it takes me going through what I got to feel, I'll do that instead of running from it. So I do exemplify that behavior. I'm going to show up.
All right. Let's hear from Dr. Donna.
For myself, I guess it really depends on how important whatever it is, whatever the circumstance, it depends on how important it is to me. If it's something that it's meaningful, then regardless of whether it's uncomfortable or not, I'm gonna give it my all and I'm gonna show up. But honestly speaking, if it's something that I don't find to be meaningful to myself, I'll just not do it. That's just me, right?
Well, you've been real. right? There's no requirement to do it. Requirement, Dr. McCook.
I think it comes down to confidence. I show up with confidence. When you show up with confidence in situations like that, it's like the air around you gets a little thick because you're waiting for a reaction from, if you're with a group of folks, you're waiting for a reaction. Are you going to get or it's going to be that deafening silence, which means, is he for real? But I'm confident in what I'm about, and I'm showing up, and this is my stance I'm going to take. It's not something about societal norm. Make a decision. I show up with confidence, and once I'm confident, if the room around me is silent, so be it. If they applaud, so be it. But I know I'm being truthful to myself, not just a fit in.
All right. So, Dr. Cecelia, we'll hear from you. Then we go to Augusta. Then we'll move it to closing.
Well, like Donna was saying, it depends on what it is. But if I deem it to be important, even a little bit important, I'm going to do it. Because one thing I've learned, I'm going to show up. I don't care how uncomfortable it is. Because one thing I've learned is that, well, several things I've learned. The uncomfortability is going to pass, right? The more you do it, it's going to wane away. The other thing is that a lot of growth comes through us doing those uncomfortable things that we would have shied away from. But if we just deal with it and deal with them, we grow so much more by entering into those spaces that we thought we would have been uncomfortable. We learn so much and we grow from it. And another thing is, in my life, I've always had this motto that I prefer to do something and say, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Then looking back and going, oh man, I should have done that. So I always take the road of, yeah, I'm going to do it. Once I see it doesn't have to be anything really big. If it's something I think I might enjoy, or if it's something that's on my bucket list, or something that, I just don't mind doing it, So I'm going to do it. I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up. Don't matter how scary it might be. I'm going to show up. And I must say, and this is a prime example, the mere fact that I'm on here talking is because I showed up when Laxley invited me way back when to do that first interview. And Laxley would have, and that was only 2 years ago. Juan, you would never catch me you would never even catch me in a picture. I hate taking pictures, much less to catch me on social media, me now on podcasts, being all over the world. I have grown so much. And the funny thing is, I even told Laxley, I actually kind of like it.
We are in trouble. He's like,
and I was the type, I was the type of person who you'd have to. I was so uncomfortable in showing myself, being talking, giving speeches, and you wouldn't get me years ago. You wouldn't get me doing that kind of. My default would have been no, I don't want to. I'm gonna be uncomfortable. No, I do everything now. Laxley, no, he can call me for anything now. I'm yep, I'm there.
No, you're calling me. So when are you gonna call me? But that's awesome, Cecelia, and you're really telling the truth there. You have really changed. So growth. Let's not say change. You're grown.
Growth.
Yeah, you're grown. And it's interesting because I really appreciate what Donna said. It depends, because I now assess what am I getting from this behavior, this action. Doesn't even make sense, even though it requires courage. Is this going to bring me? Is it aligned with where I'm heading? So I'm not just going to do it for the sake. There's a time when I would just do it, right? Just do it to do it. And that's part of growing, right? But now at a place where is this the best course of action? Even though it's going to show some courage and I'm going to do it, let's pass to the next thing. Because, you have so much energy and time and so forth. And that's another level of growth as well. But here, let's read a few comments before we go to the final to me, this is Hilda. That boils down to believing in myself. Self-drive in situations is what Cecelia is talking about, which may be uncomfortable, will force men to push up with courage to stand out. That's exactly what Cecelia did. She really changed everything. I remember the first time I invited her to come on an interview. It wasn't even live. She said, "Why would I want to do that?" And then at the end of the interview, she said, "I want to come back and talk about my business," a different interview. So just one interview shifted so much about her, and now she's hosting her own podcast. And so stepping up, showing up, and doing it, there's power in that.
Mm-hmm.
Serious power in that. And Sitawa said, "I have shown up confidently even during my weakest times, especially when I need help. I cry, wipe my tears, and then call for help because I have nothing else I can do yet. I desperately want to be okay, in as much as it is uncomfortable asking for help, I do it. I have learned to wear that strong face." And when you're asking for help, that is talking about courage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Reaching out, like, real courage. And she said she's going to do it because what? They say when your need is greater than your fear, that's when you really are not afraid to do things. When your needs are greater than your fear, then you really step out. Juan, we're going to move it to, because look at the time. It says something about what we're doing here, right? That it's something. Yeah, something is good about it. All right. So, Dr. McCook, we're going to close out because we can't stay here forever, right? Okay. So, your closing thoughts, please.
Well, again, we had some good conversation. It's good to hear from the male and female perspective.
Yes.
Yeah, so you see, this is to show that we're not a chauvinist group. We invited the lady and we respect your opinion. So thanks for it. And I always say women are the stabilizer bars in our lives. They stabilize our craziness. But I think we should be true to ourselves. Have some empathy, but in all of that, don't compromise your values.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
What a way to end that, Dr. McCook. Don't compromise your values. Augusta, closing thoughts?
I will reiterate the sentiments of a doctor that I knew last year. He became a doctor recently. But when it comes to showing up, when it comes to doing these things, do it even if it's hard. Show up where you need to and have the courage to show up even when it's hard.
Yeah.
Dr. Donna?
Yeah, definitely you have to make sure that what you're showing up for is in alignment with your purpose. And regardless of what that is, then you just go out there and do it.
And we're really talking about showing up tonight. Dr. Cecelia, final thoughts?
Yeah, final thoughts is that this was a great conversation that could have gone on and on and on. And I'm happy that we're here to help our listeners just get a grasp on how they can act intentionally to be able to serve themselves as well as help their fellow people around them, whether it be their children, spouses, co-workers, just being there and allowing others to be as vulnerable as they want to be in the same way that we are being vulnerable in our moments as well. So great conversation tonight. I am looking forward to our next conversation. Thank you so much for inviting me, Dr. Laxley and Dr. McCook and Dr. Juan, Marcel. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this conversation thoroughly.
Yeah, and you accepted to come on. You accepted the invitation, boom, just like that.
Yeah.
without even thinking about it.
I don't fight it anymore, Laxley. You know, I don't.
No, you're making me really believe that you like to be on these platforms.
Yeah, I don't. Oh, and let me put a plug in. Let me put a plug in for my podcast, which is aired on Tuesday nights, every Tuesday night, 7:30 p.m. It is aired, and you can come through a Collision with Purpose as well. We're on Facebook and YouTube, School Life Ready Talks, where we talk about all things that has to do with, for parents having children with special needs. We talk about every aspect of lives of children who are diagnosed with ADHD, autism, and other neurodiverse conditions. And we talk about their daily life functioning from preschool to school age to getting into college. So we cover a wide range of topics for any family, friends, parents, anyone who have children with disabilities in their lives. We're on every Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m.
And that's
So,
tomorrow. And that's tomorrow. All right. So, Dr. Donna, Dr. Cecelia, this would be very different tonight without both of you. So we really appreciate you. You added so much value. In fact, we're redefining gender and strength, healing vulnerability, and the power of showing up. And this would not have been effective had you not been here. So really appreciate both of you coming on. You know, what we have heard tonight proves one thing, is that real strength has no gender. None at all, right? Whether you're a man who's never been told it is okay to cry, or a woman who's tired of being strong for everyone but herself, understand this. Healing isn't weakness. Vulnerability isn't a liability. And showing up as your full self is the most courageous act of all. Most courageous thing you can do as your full self, right? So I want us to leave this space committed to creating safer spaces, not just on this platform where you can come and talk and say what you feel like saying, you know, on the internet, but in our homes, relationships, workplaces, and in the communities at large, right? So men and women, let us check in with the men who go silent. Let's make a commitment. And the women who carry invisible loads, because they're carrying. All right. Let us make room for softness and strength, for truth and transformation. And the reason why is because when we show up together, we rise stronger than we ever could alone. And that's my take. Juan, I turn it over to you, our closer.
I mean, how do you follow such a great closer? You know, but you know, I did want to say this. It's so funny that we're talking about this tonight, because a book that I just added to my summer read is called Reinventing Masculinity. The liberating power of compassion and connection. So I'm excited, even more excited now to jump into this book. But here my takeaways as we close tonight. I had to really write them down. Vulnerability is strength. Safe spaces are intentional. Courage is showing up anyway. Healing happens in community, and legacy begins now. What you're doing now starts your legacy. And tonight, as Dr. Cecelia said, wasn't just a conversation, but I feel like it was a call to show up more boldly, love more deeply, and lead more authentically. The work starts now, and it starts with us. So we enjoy you. I'm so glad that you joined us tonight. Remember to like, share, comment, and do it every week, because guess what? We're here every Monday, same time, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. So we'll see you next week. Have a great evening.